Good evening. I'd like to call the caucus to order. I will ask for nominations for caucus chairman and caucus clerk. For those nominations, I will now recognize the chair of the Board of Selectmen, John Jeffries.
Point twice. Good evening, everyone. I'd like to nominate James Rapetti and Beth Mcguire for chair and clerk.
Do I have a second? Are there any other nominations? Hearing none, I will call for a voice vote for James Rapetti for caucus chairman and Beth Mcguire for caucus clerk. A voice vote. Aye. Jim?
She forgot to say nay. Good evening. I'd like to call the caucus. Oh, excuse me. Okay, now down to the legal part. This caucus is held under the provisions of Mass General Law, Chapter 53, Sections 117 to 121. We have a town election scheduled for May 16, 2022, and our purpose tonight is to nominate a maximum of 2 candidates for each open office in that election. I would like the following process to apply to our conduct tonight. After I explain the process, I will ask for a vote for your approval. 1. Ballots must be cast and counted for those offices for which more than 2 candidates are nominated. The 2 persons receiving the highest number of votes shall be the caucus nominees. All nominees must receive the votes of at least 8% of those attending the caucus. Several years ago, we decided to allow the caucus clerk to cast a single ballot on behalf of the caucus in those instances where there are no more than 2 nominees, and to count ballots only for those offices for which more than 2 people have been nominated. 2. The persons nominating a candidate may spend 2 minutes speaking for his or her candidate. There are no seconding speeches, but I would like to hear a clear and concise second from the floor. The candidates will be introduced at the time of nomination and may speak briefly for no more than 2 minutes if they wish. 3, at the close of nominations, candidates will be introduced again and their names will be displayed on the easel. If necessary, voting will occur after the completion of nominations for all offices to be filled. All nominees must accept the caucus nomination by signing the caucus certificate. Please do so before leaving the hall tonight. If a nominee is not present tonight, he or she must sign the caucus certificate at the town clerk's office by Thursday, March 10th at 3:45 p.m. I would like to reiterate that we will not be voting if there are only 2 nominees for each position. Are there any questions about this process? Okay, you're having a hard time hearing me? So, I'm sorry. Do you want me to repeat? No. Okay. May I have a voice vote adopting this process for this caucus? Please, all in favor, please say aye. Aye. Opposed? Motion carries unanimously. If anyone wishes to run for office and they do not receive a nomination tonight, as an alternative, they can secure nomination papers from the town clerk. Nomination papers will be available on Thursday, March 10th, and must be submitted to the Board of Registrars by Monday, March 28th, by 3 p.m. 39 signatures are required of registered voters in order to use this process. I would now like to briefly recuse myself because I have a conflict of interest with respect to the first nomination. I turn the podium over to Felicia Hoffman.
I will now accept nominations for the office of moderator for a 1-year term.
Good evening. My name is Kate Haviland. I live on Walpole Street, It's my pleasure to nominate James Rapetti for the office of Town Moderator. It says wait for the second.
May I have a second?
Thank you. I didn't know if I had to ask. So Jim is a professor at BC Law, and he is the inaugural holder of the William Kennelly Chair there. He's a prolific author on the subject of tax law, and he's received numerous awards for his excellence in teaching. Jim and Sue have lived in Dover for over 30 years. They raised their 3 kids here. And before being elected moderator in 2012, Jim was the assistant moderator and caucus chair for many years. For years now, Jim has also served on Dover's Emergency Management Committee as a radio operator. He has both the skills and the temperament for the job of town moderator. And because Jim is a lot more eloquent than I am, I would like to take just a minute and read to you what he has written about Dover and its town meeting. Quote, "To some people, our tradition of town meeting may seem a throwback to past centuries. However, it is this very tradition of citizen participation that makes Dover a community of which we can be proud." Jim goes on to say that disagreement is the essence of democracy, but it is imperative that we disagree without being disagreeable. So as we have all seen, Jim takes very seriously his duty to provide a meeting in which all opinions about an issue can be considered. He's done an excellent job these past 9 years, and we are really lucky to have him as our moderator. I hope you will join me in supporting him and vote on May 16th. Thank you.
Jim, would you like to say a few words?
Thank you very much, Kate. And just very briefly, as events unfold in the Ukraine, we are reminded of how precious our gift of democracy is. And one thing to remember always is that tomorrow, after we go home tonight, we'll still be neighbors, and we'll be neighbors the day after that. So we can always disagree without being disagreeable. And I can tell you it is such an honor to serve as the moderator for this town. To paraphrase Daniel Webster, it's a small town, but there are those of us who love it. Thank you very much.
Are there any other nominations for the position of moderator? Hearing none, I declare the nominations closed. I will now turn the podium over to Mr. Rapetti.
Thank you, Felicia. Thank you, Felicia. Okay, our first nomination will be for the Board of Selectmen. One position is open, and it's a 3-year term. Do I hear any nominations? Yes, ma'am. Go up to the microphone and state your name and address. Thank you.
Hi, I'm Cindy Duvall. I live at 28 Francis Street, and I am here to nominate John Jeffries to the Board of Selectmen. As many of you know, John has been a selectman for 6 years, and he carries out his job with tremendous enthusiasm. He is a huge supporter of all things Dover, and I am happy to nominate him.
Thank you. Do I hear a second? Okay, are there any other nominations? Mr. Jeffries, would you like to say a few words?
Thank you, Jim. Cindy, thank you very much. Wholesome, eloquent, perfect. So, 2 minutes. I will be brief. The question asked to me earlier this year is, why in the name of God would you want to run for a 3rd term? The question was asked by my wife. So, Carol Lisbon ran for 3 terms. Robin ran for 3 terms. Bob and I have been 2-term selectmen. And I gave this a lot of thought. I believe that we, the 3, have done a tremendous amount of work. And the work that we began is really in process. It's a work in process. And that's why I'm going to run for a 3rd term. I believe that we can get everything that we started accomplished. I know that many of you here this evening are passionate about the town of Dover, as am I. And I think that we together have accomplished a lot. We, the three selectmen, only do what you want done. This begins with you. This process begins with you. We are just the facilitator of the process. Together, we're going to continue the excellence of the town of Dover. Robin, thank you. Bob, thank you. Carol, for your guidance and everything that you've done. Jim Dolly, Ford, all the prior selectmen. Thank you for your guidance, for what you've created, and for allowing us to be stewards of everything we have. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Jeffries. Are there any other nominations for the position of selectman? Hearing none, I declare the nominations for this position closed. We will now turn to the position of assessor. One position is open, and it is also a 3-year term. Do I have any nominations for assessor? Mr. Long.
Charlie Long, 121 Walpole Street. I'm pleased to nominate for second full term my colleague Bob Cox. Bob first settled in Dover back in 1979, and he then spent a good 20 years here in town raising his family, and then he moved on to various banking jobs throughout southern New England. And then he came back here 10 years ago and worked as a real estate broker for a number of years. Bob's been a great colleague, and it's been a pleasure to work with him. He's very well qualified for this job. I certainly hope you'll all support him for re-election.
Thank you, Mr. Long. Do I hear a second? Okay, nomination has been seconded. Mr. Cox, would you like to say a few words?
Thank you, Charlie. I would look forward to another term on the Board of Assessors. Thanks.
Thank you, Mr. Cox. Are there any other nominations for the position of assessor? Hearing none, I declare nominations for that position closed. The next position is for the Dover School Committee. There are 2 positions that are open for the school committee. Each is for a period of 3 years. Do I have any nominations for the school committee? Please come forward. Yes.
Good evening. My name is Sarah Gutierrez Dunn, and I live at 4 Powder House Road here in Dover. I am also currently the chair of the Dover School Committee, and I would like to nominate Jeff Cassidy for one of the 2 open positions on the committee. Jeff is the proud parent of 2 Chickering students and has a professional background in finance and strategy. He has served admirably on the Dover School Committee since this fall, after being appointed to fill a vacancy by the committee and by the Board of Selectmen. When Jeff stepped up to apply for this position in October, it was most assuredly a time when school committee service was not without its share of challenges. During these last 5 months, Jeff has been a valued contributor at school committee meetings where we have been faced with difficult decisions regarding our school's ongoing response to the pandemic, and where we conducted a successful renewed search for a superintendent. Throughout all of these efforts, Jeff has consistently offered valuable perspective, acted with respect and collegiality, even in times of disagreement, and shown a real commitment to doing what is best for students. I am grateful to Jeff for his willingness to continue to serve on the Dover School Committee by seeking election for a 3-year term, and I hope that all of you here this evening will join me in supporting his candidacy. Thank you.
Thank you. Do I hear a second? Okay, Mr. Cassidy?
Thank you, Sarah. I will also be brief. I did join the school committee this past fall when there was a vacancy, and I found it extremely fulfilling. We moved to the town partly for the schools that we have. I think the school committee has been doing a fantastic job. We did successfully find our new superintendent for schools, which was really a grueling process for many folks, and I've been very impressed with the time dedicated by all members of the committee. And I would appreciate being able to continue on with the work for the next 3 years. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Cassidy. Are there any other nominations for a school committee? Yes, ma'am.
Hi, my name is Elizabeth Grossman. I live at 38 Main Street. I would like to nominate Goli Sepper. She has 2 children at the Chickering School, a kindergartner and a 3rd grader. She is currently our PTO president and formerly our vice president. So she has shown a real love for our school and a commitment to the school community. She is currently a physician at Atrius Health. And so I think we could really use her, and it would be a pleasure and honor to work together. So, Goli?
Thank you. Do I hear a second? Second? Okay. Will somebody say second, please? All right, thank you. Okay,
Sorry,
go ahead,
I was too
Goli.
Good evening, everyone. Thank you very much, Liz, for nominating me and your kind words. It's an honor and privilege to be considered for an important position like this in our town. We moved to lovely Dover 8 years ago. We are a family of 4, and both children are attending Chickering Elementary School. We quickly recognized what a great community we have here and decided to give back by volunteering. I first got involved in a volunteer position at the Dover Mothers Association, and then more formally, I became the VP of PTO in 2020. And currently I'm serving as the president of PTO. In this capacity, I have had the chance to closely interact with the school, many parents, and also the Dover School Committee. I consider myself a strong candidate for this position. I personally love our town and community. By training, I hold an MD and also an MBA. I'm a full-time physician and director of 3 laboratories. I'm board member of different professional and charity organizations. My experience during the past 2 years with PTO has been very helpful in learning the intricacies of our school system. Most importantly, if I get elected, I plan to listen patiently to the voice of every single parent in this town as their volunteer public official. Thank you for your time.
Thank you, Ms. Sepper. Are there any other nominations? Yes, sir.
Hi, my name is Tim Malloy. I live at 8 Southfield Drive in Dover. And I would like to nominate Bradley Pastor for Dover-Sherburne Regional School Committee. Bradley has lived in town for 6 years. He's coached for youth soccer for 5 years. And he has a software and accounting background. And he has a child in the Chickering School and also in the high school as well.
Sir, this is still for the Dover School Committee, not the regional?
Oh, I'm sorry.
That's okay. Hold that thought. We'll come back to you in a minute, okay?
Should I stay up here?
Yeah, we'll come back to that. So we're still dealing with the Dover School Committee. Are there any other nominations for Dover School Committee? So far we have 2. There are 2 open positions, so we could have a total of 4 nominees endorsed by the caucus. Are there any other nominations? Okay, hearing none, I declare the nominations for Dover School Committee closed. Now, next, we have the Dover-Sherburne Regional School Committee. We have 1 position open, and it's a 3-year term. Sir.
I'll just hit the repeat button. Tim Malloy, 8 Southfield Drive, nominating Bradley Pastor for Dover-Sherburne School Committee. Bradley has a background in software and accounting. He also has a child in the Chickering School and a daughter in the high school. And I strongly nominate Bradley for this position.
Okay, thank you. Do I hear a second? Okay, thank you. Bradley?
He's actually traveling in Europe today.
Okay. Would anybody like to speak on his behalf, or? Okay. We can take one more nomination. Are there any other nominations? Yes, ma'am.
Good evening. My name is Maggie Sharon, and I live at 28 Ledgewood Drive. I'd like to nominate Mark Healy for the position at the Dover-Sherburne Regional School Committee. Mark Healy has been a Dover resident for the past 13 years. He, along with his wife, Bridget Gardner, and their 3 children, who are in grades 5, 7, and 9 at the Dover-Sherburne Public Schools. Sorry, that's not really a sentence. Mark received his bachelor's in chemistry from Holy Cross, his master's in teaching natural science from the Rensselaer Polytechnic University, and his school administrator's license from Boston University. He's been an educator for over 2 decades and is currently the science department chair for grades 6 through 8, as well as teaching middle school engineering in the Needham Public Schools. Over the years, Mark has supported many Dover-Sherburne community organizations, including coaching youth soccer, and through his service on the Dover School Committee, where he is wrapping up his 3-year term. Mark's reputation across town as a consensus builder, an astute analyst, as well as his thoughtful and empathetic nature, have been a huge benefit to our community during this challenging time. His demonstrated ability to reflect, engage, and find common solutions among many stakeholders would be a welcome addition to the Regional School Committee, and I would ask for your support for Mark for this role.
Okay.
Could I have a second?
Yes, can I have a second? Okay. Thank you. Maggie. Mark, would you like to say a few words?
Mark is here.
Good.
Thank you, Maggie, and it is wonderful to see so many familiar faces tonight. Yeah, thanks. I just wanted to reiterate what wasn't mentioned is my parents were also teachers, and I feel like I'm 48, and it's been a lifetime of just thinking about schools and the challenges and how we can make it better for all stakeholders. And Maggie did point out a bit about my career path. I knew I wanted to be a teacher basically by the time I left college, and that was influenced by so many wonderful teachers along the way. I'm also an administrator now, so I see that great teaching comes with a lot of financial support, but also some structures in place that help make sure that we can continue to provide great services for our students. And I look forward to your vote, and if you have any questions, feel free to toot your horn when I'm out on the road. I run a lot and would gladly stop and chat. I also live like a stone's throw from here. You can come by or email or call anytime. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, sir. Are there any other nominations for the Dover-Sherburne Regional School Committee? Okay, hearing none, I declare nominations for that position closed. Our next position involves 2 openings, the library trustee. Each is for a term of 3 years. Do we have any nominations for library trustee? Yes, ma'am.
Hi, everyone. My name is Ami Tajani. I'm at 41 Claybrook Road. I'm nominating Adrian Hill. Adrian has lived on Saddle Ridge Road in Dover for more than 20 years. He served on the Dover School Committee, both as a member and chair, and chaired the Joint School Committee. He was lucky enough to help on 3 superintendent and assistant superintendent search committees. Am I missing something?
You can just go ahead. Are you all done?
No.
Oh, go ahead. You're doing fine.
And he led the project for the installation of the classroom air conditioning at Chickering. He says that he was lucky to serve on those, in those roles. I would say that the town was lucky that he served in those roles. He has also served on the board of the Dover-Sherburne Youth Soccer Club as director, treasurer, and most recently co-president. He is standing for a third term as the library trustee. And do I have a second?
Okay, thank you. Adrian? Yes, sir.
It's fantastic to see people here. I'm just going to very briefly say I'd be delighted to serve again. The library, I think, is one of those places that brings together people from all ages in Dover. I served on the school committee, worked with youth soccer, but it's great. The library really brings people from all ages together, and that's why I think it's very special. So thank you for the nomination. I'd be delighted to serve again, and thank you very much.
Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Hill. Are there any additional nominations for library trustee? Mr. Hill.
Funny that. Just bear with me 2 seconds. So I am here and have the privilege to nominate Ami Tajani. She is standing for a second term as library trustee, and she lived in Dover for 10 years in Claybrook. Sorry, I should have said I live on 24 Saddle Ridge Road. Ami has served on the Dover PTO board for 4 years as treasurer, vice president, and president. She's also served for 3 years on the Friends of the Library board, which is a key organization in town, and she's been secretary and president on the Friends board, which has been fantastic. She's currently the program coordinator for the Dover Council on Aging, and I've consistently found her to be inspirationally thoughtful and much more considered than I am. So I am very honored to nominate her.
Okay, thank you. Do I hear a second? Okay. Ma'am, would you like to say a few words?
Thank you, Adrian. I'm really looking forward to the opportunity to serve the town in this role. Thank you.
Thank you. Are there any other nominations for library trustee? Hearing none, I declare nominations for library trustee closed. Our next position is a 3-year term for one position with the Cemetery Commission. Are there any nominations? Yes, Ms. Jackman.
Thank you, Jim. Carol Jackman, 19 Haven Terrace. And it gives me a great deal of pleasure to put in nomination Mariah Reese. Mariah resides up on Pine Street, and she has done a wonderful job on her 2 terms that she has served with us. Her expertise has definitely been in the garden. So if you get a chance, come visit Cemetery while you can, and see the beautiful garden up back by the flagpole. So I hope that you'll consider voting for Mariah. Thank you.
Do I hear a second? Yes. Ma'am, would you like to say a few words? That's a hard act to follow, but...
So thank you, Carol. I will just say that I've really enjoyed being on the Cemetery Commission. People really wonder about that, but I have a private practice here in Dover, and I'm a grief counselor and an end-of-life doula, so that cemetery is very special to me, and I know how important it is to families. I just buried both my beloved parents this year in our cemetery, so thank you.
Thank you. Are there any other nominations for Cemetery Commission? Yes, ma'am.
Ellie Hurd, Seven Haven Terrace. I'm nominating Jeff Sauer. Jeff has lived in Dover for over 15 years, and he's got a strong interest in the maintenance of Highland Cemetery to keep it in the pristine condition as it is now. Jeff is also on the board of the Dover Historical Society and has a family history connected to many well-known Dover residents, including Amelia Peabody and Lydia Fisher Chickering, and he loves cemeteries.
Do I hear a second? Okay, sir, would you like to? Yes, sir.
Good evening, Jeff Sauter, 5 Juniper Lane. I doubt if many of you have read Frank Smith's history of Dover, and more importantly, the history of the founders of the First Parish Church. And I'm an engineer, and you know, it's always dangerous if you put an engineer in front of a microphone, so bear with me. I discovered quite by accident a couple of years ago that I had some connections to the ancestry of this town. And a couple of weeks ago, I was reading the founders of the First Parish Church in Dover. And I looked at the names, and I found that 3 of the names were first cousins of my ancestors. But then I dug a little more deeply last week, and I found that the other 13 men were either more distant relatives or married to distant relatives. And I have an interest in the cemetery, but I just decided recently to run for this position because, you know, so many people live in town, they drive by that cemetery every day, they have kids in the school system and they're busy with that, or they're busy with their jobs. I'm retired now. And my thought is, and I'll share this with you, that perhaps as many as 25% of the people in that cemetery are my relatives. And I have the time to do this, and I would really like to take care of them. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Are there any other nominations for Cemetery Commission? Hearing none, I declare nominations for that position closed. Next, we move to Associate Member of the Planning Board. One position is open, and it is a 2-year term. Yes, Ms. Lisbon.
Keep feeling shorter and shorter. I'm Carol Lisbon, 2 Cross Street. I'm also currently the chair of the Planning Board, and it's a privilege tonight to be able to nominate 2 of my current colleagues to the positions that are open now for the Planning Board. But we'll start with the associate position, and I nominate Val Lynn. Val became an associate member of the Planning Board this fall when we had an opening, and we ran some announcements. We had 4 wonderful candidates, and the Planning Board and the Board of Selectmen appointed Val. By the bylaws, she has to run now for her full 2-year term. Val has been in Dover for about 10 years, has been incredibly active. She was elected twice to the Park and Rec Commission, so that was 6 years on Park and Rec. She was a member of one of the Carroll Community Center feasibility studies. I'm not sure which one. I'm sorry, I couldn't help myself. She was also very active in the Dover Mothers Association and on the Chickering PTO. And this depth and breadth of experience that she's had in Dover has already shown itself in her participation on the Planning Board. So I hope you will support her nomination. Her 5 colleagues on the Planning Board certainly do, and we hope that you'll consider Val for that position. Thank you.
Thank you. Do I hear a second? Okay, thank you very much. Val, would you like to say a few words?
Thank you, Carol. It's very nice to see everyone this evening. I grew up in a town very similar to Dover with the size and the rural character, so this town feels very comfortable to me. And it's very clear that in the leadership in the past and in the present, there's been a lot of effort to really focus on preserving that rural character and keeping the town consistent with incremental steps forward, and that's what I seek to do as a member of the Planning Board. Thank you.
Thank you. Are there any other nominations for the Planning Board Associate Member? Hearing none, I declare nominations for that position closed. Next, we have Planning Board regular membership. One position is open, 5-year term. Ms. Lisbon.
Carol Lisbon, 2 Cross Street. I'd like to nominate Scott Friedman. Scott is also a member of the Planning Board right now. He was elected in the fall as a voting member of the Planning Board, having been an associate member for about 6 months before that. Scott is relatively new to Dover, but he got very involved very quickly. I guess as one of the advantages of Zoom meetings, he started to attend just as an interested citizen, which was wonderful to see. So when a position became open, Scott was an obvious choice that the planning board, again, to fill a position, voted on. And now it's his term to run for a full 5-year term as an elected member of the planning board. So I hope you will support him. He too has the full support of his colleagues on the planning board right now. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Scott, would you like to say? Oh, do I hear a second? Sorry, boy, I'm having a tough night. Yeah. Scott, sorry. Yeah.
Thank you, Carol. Really appreciate it. My family and I, we moved here in June of 2020. We've got 2 little boys. Our 5-year-old is a kindergartner at Chickering, and our 3-year-old is at CDC. They both love school, and we all love Dover. And I've really enjoyed over the past year getting involved in the planning board initiatives, and I'm really excited about the prospect of continuing that, and it would really be a privilege to have some degree of involvement in what happens in this town going forward. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Are there any other nominations for the planning board 5-year term? Hearing none, I declare nominations for that position closed. Next, we move to the Board of Health. 1 position is open, and it's a 3-year term. Are there any nominations for Board of Health? Yes, Kathy.
Oh, Carol, you're too short.
Oh, there goes our tax rate.
Kathy Gilbody, 8 Raleigh Road. It's my pleasure to nominate Dr. John Quackenbush for the available position on the Board of Health. John is a professor and chair of the Department of Biostatistics at the Harvard T.H. Chan School of Public Health. He's also a professor at the Brigham and Women's Hospital and at the Dana-Farber Cancer Institute. John's PhD was in theoretical physics, but in 1992, he received a fellowship to join the Human Genome Project. He worked at the Salk Institute, Stanford University, and the Institute for the Genomic Research before moving to Harvard in 2005. John studies how our genetic background determines our traits and risk for disease, which interestingly is one of the things my husband also does. Among his honors is recognition in 2013 as a White House Open Science Champion of Change. John moved to Dover in 2005 with his wife, Mary Calamaris, and in 2006, their son Adam joined them. He has served already on the Dover Capital Budget Committee for the past 3 years, and this year he contributed as an advisor to the Board of Health. Because we were having virtual meetings, I, as an interested resident, was present and able to participate and listen to many of those Board of Health meetings, and I was just very, very impressed with John's contributions, his conciseness, how he could explain difficult concepts, and how he's very focused on science and evidence. During COVID, he served on the during the COVID pandemic. He also served on the health and safety committees of the Charles River and the Boston University Academy, both of which implemented common sense health protocols and were open for in-person education throughout the last 2 academic years. He is a strong advocate for public health, a careful and critical thinker, an exceptional communicator, and a proud and committed resident of Dover. He'd be an outstanding addition to the Board of Health in this role, and I ask for your support.
Do I hear a second? Okay, thank you, Kathy.
John's traveling and unable to be here tonight.
Oh, okay. Very good, thank you. Are there any other nominations then for the Board of Health? Okay, hearing none, I declare nominations for that position closed. We have several positions now on Park and Recreations. 2 of those positions are for a 3-year term, and we'll consider those positions first. So 2 openings, each for a 3-year term with Parks and Recreation. Are there any nominations? Yes, sir.
Good evening, Mike Gillio, 4 Rocky Brook Road. I nominate Chris Boland for the position of Park and Rec.
Well, we can do a second now. Do I hear a second? Okay, go ahead, sir. Oh, you don't want to say a few words about the candidate?
Chris has been on the Park and Rec for as long as I can remember. I've been here 20 years now, and he's always done a great job. And I've been on one side and hope to be working with him more. I've been on the board for like 6 months now, so he's always done a great job.
Okay, great. Thank you. Chris?
Thanks, Mike. I've been on Park and Rec now for, I think it's 12 years, so this will be my 5th term, and I really like the opportunity to see through the community center project that we're working on, and it's a really good group that we have, and we've had a lot of momentum, especially since we hired Mark Galoni, I think in my 2nd term, and it's really been very positive since then. So thank you for the opportunity.
Thank you, Chris. Are there any other nominations for the 3-year term Parks and Recreation? Chris?
I'd like to, Chris Boland, Tower Drive. I'd like to nominate Eric Loeffler. Eric has been on Park and Rec for 9 years, I believe, so he'll be running for his 4th term. Eric has 4 children in or moving through the Dover schools. He's been active in all the youth sports that I've been involved in over the years, and he's a great asset to the team. He's an attorney by trade. He's been involved in the Open Space Commission as the Park and Rec liaison, and has held various other responsibilities for the group, and I'd appreciate your support for Eric. Thank you.
Thank you. Do I hear a second? Okay, great. Eric?
Eric is not here this evening.
Oh, okay. Thank you. Are there any other nominations for 3-year term Parks and Recreation? Okay, hearing none, I declare nominations for that position closed. We now move to the 2-year term for Parks and Recreation. There is 1 position open, 2-year term for Parks and Recreation. Nominations. Chris.
Chris Boland, Tower Drive. I'd like to nominate Mike Gillio. Mike started with Park and Rec earlier this year. He was a write-in candidate for the open position, and by law is required to run for the balance of the 3-year term, which will be the next 2 years. As Mike said, we've known each other for a long time. Mike's been very active in youth baseball and softball. He's been a great addition to the team, and most of all, I'm just happy that somebody was enthusiastically interested in joining our team, and I wasn't aware, none of us were aware of it, so we love people who want to be involved, and Mike's a great example of that. So I appreciate if you could give Mike your support. Thank you.
Do I hear a second? Okay, Mike, would you like to say a few words?
Thank you. Like Chris said, I've been on it for like 6 months, and I'm really looking forward to continuing what I'm doing with them. It's a great team. Thank you.
Thank you. Are there any other nominations for the 2-year term Parks and Recreation? Okay, hearing none, I declare nominations for that position closed. Lastly, we move to the position of Constable. We have 3 positions that are open for Constable. Each is for a 3-year term. Are there any nominations for Constable? Yes, ma'am. Getting your exercise today.
Ellie Hurd, Seven Haven Terrace. I'm going to nominate my husband, William Hurd, and he has asked me to keep it short and simple. Bill has lived in Dover for over 20 years on Haven Terrace. He enjoys being a constable and wishes to continue to serve. That's it.
Thank you. Do I hear a second? Thank you. Mr. Hurd.
Ellie, thank you for that introduction. Bill Hurd. I've also filled a number of different positions in the town of Dover. This will be my 5th run for constable, so I would appreciate your vote. and it's been a pleasure working with Felicia and her entourage that she gets to work between town committee and the elections. So I'd appreciate a vote. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Hurd. Are there any other nominations for a constable? Yes, sir. Mr. Jackman.
Hi, Chris Jackman, Tisdale Drive. I'm here to nominate Andre Boudreau for Constable. Andre and I have worked many years. I've been pulled in here and there. You see me at town meeting and elections. And Andre's a great guy. Pulled me into Scouts along with this character. And yeah, Andre Boudreau, he's a great kid, guy, whatever. He's young. I still call everybody under the age of 40 a kid. So.
Thank you. Do I hear a second? Mr. Boudreau?
Oh, Andre can't be. He's home with the kids tonight.
Okay. Thank you, Chris. Are there any other nominations for constable? Yes, ma'am, Mrs. Devine.
Elizabeth Devine, I'm at 17 Haven Terrace. It's with great pleasure that I am going to nominate my nephew, Christopher Jackman, to this position. As Chris said, he's tried out the job and liked it. He has been very active in town. He grew up in the town of Dover. He married and raised all 3 of his children here. He was very active in Boy Scouts with his 2 sons coming through. In the past, present, he's working on a Memorial Day committee and would like to continue his service as a Dover Constable. Thank you.
Thank you, Liz. Do I hear any seconds? Okay. Mr. Jackman.
Yeah, so as Business said, born and raised Dover. I have a huge sense of commitment to the community. I don't have her sense of humor, but my mom, Carol. She wasn't that funny when we were kids. Yeah, but no, I would appreciate your support. I've enjoyed doing the job interim over the years. Thanks.
Thank you. Are there any other nominations for a constable? Okay, hearing none, I declare nominations for that position closed. We have no more than 2 nominees for each position, so I would like to direct the caucus clerk to cast 1 ballot for the caucus, which reflects the names that have been put forward tonight. Before we close tonight's meeting, a couple of reminders. 1, town meeting is Monday, May 2nd, and Tuesday, May 3rd, beginning at 7 p.m. We have a lot of deferred business that has been postponed because of COVID. So our expectation is that we will be going 2 nights. We will try our hardest to get you out 1 night, but we think it's going to be very difficult. So you might want to plan on 2 nights, Monday and Tuesday, May 2nd and May 3rd. Town elections are Monday, May 16th from 7 a.m. to 8 p.m. The registration for the town meeting and the town election will be accepted by the registrars up until Tuesday, April 12th. So you have until April 12th, Tuesday, to register if you are not yet registered to vote. I would like to ask all nominees to please sign the caucus certificate and pick up the campaign finance materials from the town clerk before leaving the hall tonight. Do I have a motion to adjourn the caucus? Do I have a second? All in favor, please say aye. Aye. Opposed? Motion carries unanimously. Thank you very much. You're right.